Welcome to the Prevention Podcast, Water Safety Matters. Join industry experts as we explore public health strategies around water safety for all. Whether you're someone on the front lines or a family member sharing an experience, we'll discuss hidden dangers, diverse challenges, and common pitfalls so we can help educate and prevent unintentional injuries and drowning. Hosted by the Water Safety Syndicate. Let's dive right into it.
Good morning. This is Angela with the Water Safety Syndicate, and today's podcast is going to be interviewing Katrina Blanc. Katrina Blanc is founder of the Kendall Bug Foundation, and we're going to be talking about Katrina's mission, why she is a swim instructor, her reasons for getting into the industry, and her passions about drowning prevention. So welcome, Katrina.
Thank you for having me.
I hope that you can allow the audience to hear your story. Please just take a few minutes to share your story with us, what happened and what led you to become involved in drowning prevention.
In summer of 2019, my husband and I and our family were getting ready to head out to Fiesta Island for Father's Day weekend to spend the day on the water. I had just gotten home from work and pulled up into the driveway. We started loading our ice chest, swimsuits, everything needed for the day. I ran inside quickly, went to the bathroom, and when I came back, I instantly asked my husband, "Where's Kendall?" He said, "Oh, I thought Kendall was with you." Instantly, we all ran out to the back, and unfortunately, she was in the pool. We pulled her out, started CPR, and we were rushed to the local emergency room. Kendall passed away in the ER. So that is what sparked me to get involved in this mission to help ensure that other families don't experience the same type of tragedy in their own homes.
What do you think is important for others to understand about your experience?
Honestly, the most important information that any parent or family or in the community could understand is that this incident was preventable, 100% preventable. And if you don't think that it could happen to you, it absolutely can.
Given your experiences, what do you think has changed about your views about water safety after your loss?
I'd say what changed is prior to the loss, we kind of thought about drowning and even water safety in general as kind of out of sight, out of mind. It was something that we felt we did well in our home. At the time, we had 3 older children who all grew up around the pool. We taught them to swim and float and do all the things, and we felt that they were safe at home until this happened, and we realized that there are so many additional preventative measures that should have been in place that we didn't even think about, that we had no idea were even necessary. So I'd say that's biggest change for me.
And that's a really good point, and I thank you for that. I'm curious, given all that you've shared, are there any myths or misunderstandings that you believed at the time?
I would say there's a few. Initially, using flotation devices or things like that are beneficial. With my older kids, we used life jackets to help teach them and assist in getting our kids to lay on their back. We felt that was a positive way to help them adjust to being in that position. Not until after did I realize that putting that life jacket on her was probably one of the biggest mistakes we made, that thinking that was something that is or should be used in a safety way around the pool was a positive thing. That probably is number one myth, connecting with families and letting them know that that's probably one of the worst things that you could do is so important. I think another myth is that your children know how to swim. They know how to tread water. They know how to do all of those little swimming tricks and habits that they've picked up, and that's enough. In a situation where they were to fall in or an emergency where they were panicked, being able to get to their back, to float, to get their air, and then to understand, okay, now what do I do? Do I call for help? Do I flip over and reach for the wall? Those types of things, I think are really big myths. Like I said, having older children, we thought, hey, it's fine. But also having those older children, I think that shows the younger ones like, oh, I think I could do that too. When in reality, physically, they can't. They're not strong enough to do that. And in a panic situation, that's not something that they should be thinking about. They should be thinking about rolling to their back, getting in their float, and then catching their breath. That is another one that I think is a really big myth or misunderstanding that should change for parents, grandparents, everyone.
I think that's really interesting when we talk about myths and misunderstandings, because I was pleasantly surprised that my pediatrician had little blurbs of information about water safety during my children's well visits. While it was small, it was just like 1 or 2 sentences tucked in with sleep habits and making sure safe sleep habits and how to keep your kids safe and away from the oven and very basic standard child safety. Did you ever see or collect any water safety information from your pediatrician during your kids' well visits?
No, I know I probably filled out some type of form that said, are your cabinets locked? Medications or poisons out of the way? Do you have your windows and doors and things like that locked? I'm sure maybe once or twice I saw something about leaving your child unattended at the tub or something like that, but never really anything about water safety specific or even resources or how to prevent or what to look out in those situations. So
yeah, really, it's interesting how in hindsight now we see that or looking for where was it before, and so helpful for parents, even just small. And we recognize pediatricians all have 10 minutes per patient and they have to get 22 points of safety and information and health and wellness for the kids. So I know that they're overwhelmed. But switching gears, you had talked a little bit about your experience as an instructor and what your goals are. So if you could share with the audience, what influenced you? Obviously, the loss of your daughter is the biggest influence, but was there something nuanced in regards to becoming a survival swim instructor that led you down that path?
Yeah, so I'd say for the first year, I wanted to have nothing to do with any conversation about water. But after I started looking into resources, after school programs, summer camps, information, education, access, I was shocked at how limited this information was. I did get a lot of, Google search and all these swim schools or different things like that, but it was more swim school that was oriented towards children who had already been swimming for years, interested in water polo or endurance swim. And I just thought to myself, this statistic, this just big red flag in my face of leading cause of death for children 1 to 4. It was so shocking to me that statistic is plain as day, and it's not shared with the families, with moms and dads and even grandparents or whoever are caring for these children, that it's not shared. It's not there. And then the families who do see this information and they do take it seriously, there's not a lot of options for them to get their child safe. And so that is what really sparked it for me. It really put a fire in me and helped me to decide to move forward and to see what I could do to actually help serve the community in whatever way I can. Telling people my story to whoever would listen, speaking to my neighbors and the community, the schools that my children were going to, our after school programs and everything that were happening at the time. That's really what sparked it. And I thought to myself, people have to know, people have to be aware that this is such a huge risk and it's a preventable risk, but they have to know to make a change. So that's really what sparked me getting involved.
And then became the Kendall Bug Foundation. Please share with our audience about that.
Yes. As I was researching, gathering information, creating educational pamphlets and flyers and speaking with local nonprofits and resources in the community, I started to notice that a lot of people are interested, but there was no actual service to provide them other than sharing that information with their families. I would get questions like, I have these families here who are interested in signing up. Where should they go? Or who should they reach out to? And that really changed my vision for what I was doing. It made me realize that in order to reach and help families, creating something like the Kendall Bug Mission that could actually provide the resources or connect families to the needs that they have was something that needed to happen. And so in creating this nonprofit, I've been able to do that. Not only provide the survival swim lessons, but also get other families connected to different areas of safety that they need, whether that be CPR first aid or referring to pole fence installation, or, how they can do all these preventative measures and what that actually looks like for them.
Yeah, it sounds like it's an amazing mission. Doing some really good work.
It's a really tough mission, but it's necessary. My biggest motivator now is not only continuing to honor my daughter, but to make sure that the pain, the tragedy, the depth of a loss like this doesn't continue to happen. I know that I can't save everyone, but connecting with one individual and then with another and another and another will save many. The more we can share and the more that we can connect, the more that we can do, the bigger the change can be.
I love that. And I think we always talk about the grassroots efforts of drowning prevention and water safety and educating parents. And so let's expand that thought from just the real small grassroots into a larger scale. And when it comes to stories or campaigns or visual aids, tell me what you think some of the most effective ways of raising awareness of drowning prevention in the community can be.
I think probably the biggest way to impact the community are with, real stories. I think a lot of people, and myself personally, they see these stories on the news or they hear someone talking about it. It's like they hear it and they acknowledge it and they say something along the lines of, I couldn't imagine if that happening to me. I'm praying for the family and that kind of stuff. It's great to spark the conversation, but having a real impact to these people, feeling the connection internally and in turn saying, how can I help? How do I change this? How can I be support to the families in need? And not just by saying, oh, I'm praying for them, or, oh, I couldn't imagine that happening to me, but actually making a change or having an effort that can help. I think those are the biggest way that these campaigns can make a difference. Getting out there, getting real, getting raw, and letting people know we are real everyday people. I'm not a huge celebrity that my story is going to be blasted all over social media or the news. We were very thankful and lucky that our community came together to support our family and continue to do so. But there's a lot of families that this happens to, and you hear a, 30-second clip on the news and maybe something in the newspaper, if people even read the newspaper, maybe a short post on one of the social media outlets. People read it, click it, and then they just move on. Unfortunately, this tragedy and the aftermath of this, it sticks with families for the rest of their lives. Not even just the immediate family, extended family, friends, community members who were there, even the emergency medical individuals who are all part of doing this day in and day out. They experience and continue to experience real raw stories of what they go through. The EMTs that have to come and try to revive the individuals, the family, the children, the people that are continuing to live on after this tragedy. I think allowing them to speak, allowing them to share, and not only in a small platform, but to actually make this something that is what it needs to be. This is something that is affecting every single one of our children every single day, creating the real need for the talk, the real need for the information, and having people understand that is something that needs to change. And it's something that we can change together. I think that's really the biggest way that, changing these campaigns or these conversations, or even just the way the information is getting out. I feel like that would change the impact of what all of us are trying to do.
Yeah. Expanding on that, we've talked a lot about drowning prevention within an injury prevention spectrum, and that it is part of unintentional injuries within pediatrics in that population. What are your thoughts on expanding that message further from a public health perspective? How can we get that message out to pediatricians and injury prevention specialists and outside the smaller scope of our world and make that a priority with the larger scope of public health at large?
So this is something I've been trying to get myself into the door with, really making that big change. At a community level, it's amazing to see the support, help, and the way that friends, families, and community come together. But it is going to take, more than that. It's going to take changes within legislation and policy, and those who have the ability to change the requirements within our preventative care systems, like pediatricians or our different programs for our children. It's going to take that. It really is. For us, these are huge wins when anything like that is implemented or adjusted, or even very small changes drafted to require or even allow that information to be shared. But big scale, there are individuals who can make a change. There are individuals who can make sure that these policies are required or implemented, just even provided to the families. Like I said, the sad truth about the tragedy is a lot of people just don't know. They're unaware that this is something they need to be looking out for, preventing and changing their views and habits on the whole situation. So yeah, it's going to take those who have bigger abilities and more people watching, essentially.
Yeah.
So
for the audience, Katrina and I were blessed to be a part of a recent press conference and a gathering of water safety professionals here in San Diego County in support of Congresswoman Lori Davies' bipartisan bill, AB 1005. And it is hopefully going to get passed and approved here by the end of this month, and we're really looking forward to it. What AB 1005 does is provides swim lesson vouchers and scholarships, and it creates a swim lesson directory for those wanting information. But most importantly, it provides water safety education and information in public schools. Katrina, tell us a little bit about where you think schools and childcare providers could play a role in educating families about ways to be safer in the water and around water.
Absolutely. I was so thankful to be invited and to be able to share. This is a really big part of what I personally feel like can change, and something I've been trying to implement within the Kendall Bug Mission. And again, it's one individual. It's so hard. It is so hard how many PTO, PTAs, principals, parents, anybody that you can go to within the school district or the schools themselves, talking to them, letting them know, sending home the information with families, putting it on your website, making it easy to access once they find the information they're looking for. That would make such a huge change. The child care providers being able to be connected with an instructor in the area, somebody that would either be willing to provide the services at a discount or through the child care provider or whatever educational or support that family's using at the time for their younger children, to get them to these lessons, to be able to get them involved. And if it's available to them through those individuals, then you don't have to worry about the parents not being able to take them every day or having to take off work just to be able to make sure that their kids are safe. And for our educational system, families have their children there daily. They trust the teachers, they trust the counselors, they trust the individuals that are with their children every single day. And to be able to provide the information through those avenues and then provide the services that are being recommended through those avenues would be a huge plus and a huge change. I know for myself as a parent, a big stressor for me was always like, oh, I'm not sure what to do or where to go because I'm worried about where my kids are or who they're with or how the program or whatever we're going through is perceived in the community. Like, would you recommend them? Would you not recommend them? And if that information is given to them easily at their fingertips, it's easier for them to make that choice and follow through with the choice instead of just hearing it and going, oh, that's a good idea, and then never doing anything about it.
I agree. Something I discovered several years ago, and you described it perfectly, is that there seems to be some confusion about where to access information. So at the Water Safety Syndicate, that whole goal was born to create one main page, one main website in which someone, a family, or even a water safety professional could go to gain access to who are the leading organizations or who are the leading websites, who are the leading nonprofits doing good work, where can I find swim scholarships, are there any publications, organizations that I wasn't aware of and now I have been, or what campaigns are happening. And so I think when we have greater cohesion between legislators and first responders and pediatricians and at the community level, all of us, that confusion will hopefully start waning away as we start making more of a collective effort to putting all of those eggs into one basket. But transitioning a little bit, I think what I'd love to hear too is, how have you found to approach these types of very sensitive topics in a non-confrontational way or a fearful way when parents, you see, kind of starting to shut down or panic when that conversation happens?
Honestly, I think just being truthful for me, because of how important and how vital I feel to these survival swim lessons, CPR, first aid, all of these preventative resources. For me, I think kind of changing the dynamic of how we discuss it, not even just with parents, but with the community, making sure that when I'm responding to any type of concern or fear or even negativity, that it's not confrontational at all, that it's letting people know that this is a real crisis for our children, a preventative situation that's been happening, and that for every family, every child, it's not a one size fits all. There are so many great programs out there that will teach survival and skill to be able to prevent drowning. It's not one organization or one specific skill or tactic. There are many preventative measures that need to be put in place in order for this to change. And as a parent who has a lot of fears, there are different programs you can look into that could work better for your family. There are some that are not as intense. There are some that are, less days per week, or, there's different ways to go about it. And being able to take that information in, make your decision, but still have a positive discussion with someone in that profession to help understand what is really necessary in preventing this situation from happening. I think for me, that is how I get across to parents. That's how I connect. I address, not even with just parents, but community members or other individuals who have concerns, even people I've discussed with to provide sources like child care providers and different things like that. It's not one size fits all. And we as parents do have a right to understand. It's very important that those of us in the field take the time to actually educate the families correctly and positively, and not to put a negative taste in their mouth, directing their questions toward us or their misconceptions towards us, making sure that we keep this as the truth of the matter, which is drowning is preventable. Providing these layers of prevention are necessary, and survival swim is one of those preventative measures. And again, just continuing to educate, continuing to give that a positive light so that people can understand that it's not one size fits all, and you can still keep your child safe in a manner that you choose as long as, like you said, you're going through reputable nonprofits or instructors. I would never say, just go Google somebody. And if they're in your area, go ahead. Make sure that they have training. Ensuring safety is the number one priority of your child, because ultimately that is your goal and mission as a parent. Reassuring them, like, I'm a parent too. I've experienced this loss. I have older children and I still have fears and things that I need to talk through. It's okay to have that feeling or the misconception, but making sure that it's cleared up in a way that's positive and it's going to actually ensure that those families do start providing those preventions for their families.
So changing the gears then, tell me a story of when you had a parent who you knew just got it.
I have a family who is amazing, and they've become like family. Her son is on the spectrum, and she reached out to me being an advocate for water safety. I read her email, and I instantly was like, I don't know how, but I'm going to find a way to get you into my schedule. The way she expressed how important it was to ensure that her son was safe, how passionate she was about the fact that he's on the spectrum and how high risk it is for him. And they love the water and want him to be capable, just like every other child is capable in the water. It sparked instantly with me that she knew exactly why and what needed to happen without having to hear my story, without even knowing that I had experienced that type of tragedy. That for me was just like, wow, like she gets it. Like anytime I have a conversation with her, now I teach her younger one too. It's amazing to me. I love the fact that she does just get it and doesn't have to experience the pain to be able to have that kind of intense and understanding conversation with me. And she advocates to all of her friends and family and clients. That's for me. She's probably the first person I came across in the last 4 years that I've been doing this that I was like, wow, she gets it. Like she gets this instantly without the backstory or any of that.
Love it. So obviously we can all agree that for many, unfortunately, who don't get it would be producers or bloggers or sometimes even public health officials, lawmakers. So what would you ask them to do differently to get it?
I think what I would ask them to do is sit with families who have experienced this tragedy and not had the ability to have a voice of advocacy, because there's so many families that have been affected by this. They lost their spouse on top of their child. They lost connection with jobs and community and friends and families. They couldn't get access to the mental health support, finances, or additional resources that come with losing a child. I think that is where people who just don't get it need to go. They need to see the full effects of the tragedy. Like I said, a lot of the times it's just these short clips and it's real and raw for that 30 seconds or maybe even a couple of weeks when it's in the back of their minds, like, oh, it's horrible and it's tragic and it's preventable and what can we do? And okay, we shared and let's move on. I think spending time with individuals who have really been impacted and then seeing the effect that someone like yourself or myself or the community can have on those individuals is really where they need to go, where they need to sit. Yeah, I think that would be the only way a real change in their hearts and minds would happen.
Thank you for sharing. What is the one final nugget of knowledge or advice you want to leave with listeners today?
I think the one final nugget I want to leave is that drowning is preventable. And even though you're one person, you can make a difference. You can make a change, no matter how small that little ripple is. The ripple, and it makes a change. If everyone does their one small piece, we could really make a big impact and help to save our children.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk and share your story. Do you want to kind of point our listeners into the direction? What is your website? How can they get a hold of you if someone wants to reach out to you? What's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
Best way would be the website. The website is thekendallbugmission.org. On that website, you have access to our link tree, to our social media accounts. If you want to get involved and volunteer, if you want to partner, if you want to sponsor children for lessons, if you want to reach out directly to me, if you're interested in becoming a swim instructor or a CPR first aid instructor, all of those resources are available through the website. And every day we're adding and, hoping to provide more resource. So if you have an interest or you just want to, connect, that's the best way to reach me.
Excellent. I'm going to put the information down in the text below at the end. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your stories, and all of the good nuggets that you had. My name is Angela Wild. I am here with the Water Safety Syndicate for the Prevention Podcast, and thanks for listening.
Thank you for joining us as we all unite around the common goal of helping families and communities learn how to respect the water and prevent accidents. We hope you've gained insights, tips, and strategies to help keep you and your loved ones safe. For more information, please visit thewatersafetysyndicate.org. Remember, respect the water, but have fun and stay safe doing it.